Well, as the title of the first episode said, Tommy is back. Following on from the deadly end to the first season of the show, this season picked up a matter of days after the events that occurred in the season 1 finale, with weakness being present, hunger for more being at the forefront, yet the morals of protecting family being at the core too. This first episode was a great representation of everything that's most likely going to come in this new season of the show. So with that, let's recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from the episode. So let's get into it. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. It's probably best to break this video down by characters and families, as there was a ton to take away from it all. Let's begin with Tommy. From the moment that the episode began, we saw that Tommy was still mourning the death of Lilliana, which occurred in season 1, and as well as mourning her, he was frustrated with himself because he hadn't avenged her death yet, and it had been a couple of days. We saw true emotion coming from Tommy in the opening scene, especially when he was hallucinating. This is something which is always refreshing because often we see the hard exterior that he presents. Mourning was something which was present throughout a lot of this episode, not only with Tommy, but also with Vic, and the fact that he was still mourning Claudia, and also was expressing the vengeful trait that Tommy had too. Tommy showed a couple of different sides in this episode. The ruthless nature that he had when he took out Chewie for switching sides, hunger to take over the entirety of Chicago and to also take out the Serbs and also Miguel, plus the care that he had for his family, and the fact that he wanted to ensure that they're kept safe and out of harm's way. There wasn't friction between himself and Dee in this episode, but I feel like friction is something that's going to become present as the season goes on, with Diamond having to deal with a new parole officer and needing to be a bit more cautious about his actions. Tommy's loose cannon attitude and the way that he takes things into his own hands without consulting, despite being partners, could be something that causes Diamond to get frustrated and their partnership to show signs of weakness, something which Jenard will jump on, especially considering he's out there struggling when compared to everybody else. So that's something to definitely keep an eye out for. I think Tommy's eyes being bigger than his stomach and his hunger to take over the entirety of Chicago could cause some kind of unraveling for the character. And with the authorities looking at him, it could cause more problems. Tommy doesn't know it yet, but the police are all over him with surveillance, and at the end of the episode they found out who he was because of the fingerprints that they took from the door handle of his car. Finding out that he faked his death in New York and that he was connected to every arm of the trade in Chicago. So it seems as though they're going to be going after him in order to try and take down every corner that is present. So Tommy has the potential to become a real weak link very quickly if anybody gets a sniff of the police being onto him. I see this being something that could happen with Miguel, as he's a very cautious individual. Tommy met Mireia for the first time in this episode, and it's clear to see that there's going to be some kind of relationship that occurs between the pair, even though it seemed as though she was already in a relationship with a fellow nurse. You could tell that she liked him, and I think his charm will eventually win her over, despite saying that she didn't want to be involved in that kind of lifestyle. I think she's the straight and narrow and good to counterbalance the bad that lives within Tommy, so I think they will end up having at least one encounter. With Tommy taking out Chewie right at the end of the episode following Chewie switching sides, Tommy has just essentially committed an act of war on Jenard and his crew, so I do wonder if anything will come of that. My thoughts are that Jenard is not in the best position at the moment, but with Mirkovich essentially telling Jenard that he needed to sort Tommy out because he was in his territory and he wanted it back, this could be his opportunity to try something. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. The Flynns. In terms of the unraveling of a family, the Flynns were falling to pieces every minute that passed by. We saw that Walter was losing control of his empire and also his family, with him paying Brendan Doyle a steady flow of cash in order to keep peace, and with us finding out that he didn't have enough money to pay him. We could ultimately see Brendan look to move in on Walter and the Flynns. Brendan's father was friends with Walter, not Brendan, which is something that I feel is key to take away from their encounter and how the direction of the future is going to be for them. With Vic and Claudia agreeing to go into business together following their resentment towards their father, it didn't take long for that to fall to pieces and for Claudia to be firing at somebody again. The recipe for Dahlia was leaked out into the public, and it took only a matter of moments for there to be imitators out there selling it, which meant that the key selling point that the Flynns had was no longer valid, and they'd lost a massive part of their appeal. So with Jenard going around there earlier and offering up what he had to offer, I feel we may see Claudia reach out and get involved, as Dahlia can't be their only venture now. With Claudia being the person who killed Lilliana in season 1, Tommy is after the Flynns, and they indirectly know that they're in a lot of danger. Walter seems to be the main one that Tommy's after, but I'm sure he will come to learn the truth in due course. Claudia and Vic finished the episode without being partners anymore, meaning that they literally only lasted in business together for a day. Within the trailer, with Walter essentially saying to Claudia that he wanted her to head up the Empire, it makes me think that Vic could potentially turn on the family, as he already doesn't really care for his father that much, and he may feel betrayed by his sister. So his journey is going to be a very interesting one to follow. Jenard. This was a part of the episode that I found myself watching and almost laughing at as time went on. Jenard's day just kept getting worse and worse. We saw that he poached Chewie from his brother, and he also didn't have enough money to pay Miguel, which meant that he was on a tight deadline for Friday in order to pay the money that he owed. If he didn't, then he was going to be facing a painful Friday feeling. Plus, after that, we saw that he was then being beaten by Merkovich and the Serbs for not taking out Tommy or his brother, and also because they were in Merkovich's area. So he's clearly struggling at the moment when compared to everybody else in the area. And with that comes desperation and fear, something which was summed up when he went to answer the door in the final moments. Desperation is also something that it looks as though he's considering, as he needs to pay the money to Miguel in a few days. This can be something that leads to chaos and panic, and with the very thing that will solve his problem being Tommy or his brother being out of the picture, he may look to do something drastic when it comes to that. Overall review. I thought this was a good start to the season. It had great pacing to it, and considering it was an hour long, it didn't drag in the slightest. Each of the individual arcs got a decent amount of attention, and the overarching plot has definitely been laid down. Tommy's hunger to become the kingpin of the entirety of Chicago, whilst also seeking revenge and avenging the death of Lilliana, are two things that are definitely interesting. Do I think he'll be successful? It's a tall order, and I would be surprised, but who knows? Anything is technically possible, but with the authorities breathing down his neck, it's going to be even more difficult. Tommy is a very interesting character to follow, and the performance by Joseph Sikora is always so convincing. Diamond looks like he's going to have a complex story in this season too, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it's all going to unfold. Bring on episode 2 next week. So, there you have it, episode 1 explained. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of the first episode? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.